Jack Hermansson, Sean Strickland. As you mentioned, man, Sean Strickland's getting a lot of attention from some crazy things that he's saying on the mic, but behind the scenes, almost quietly, this guy has the second longest win streak in the division. He's also been kind of a favorite of the books. He's been installed as a favorite a lot of these fights. In fact, he hasn't been an underdog, I think, until you got to go all the way back to him fighting Kamaru Usman years ago. So what are you thinking about Sean Strickland as a guy just in this division getting a lot of attention, and that line has sort of been there all along the way? What are your thoughts on Sean Strickland going into this one?
Well, look, you got a guy here who's definitely come out of his shell a little bit. He's not necessarily going down the Colby Covington route, but he's just being himself, and himself is a character, to say the least. But the one thing about him that people need to really understand, this is a very hard-working fighter. He takes his job seriously. As much as he talks about all these other ancillary things in his life, it always comes back to he knows who he is. He is a fighter at heart. He loves his job, and he is here to win. You know, do I really believe that he should be this big of a favorite over someone like Jack Hermansson? I do not. I think Sean Strickland is doing the right thing. He's fought the right people along the way, but he hasn't fought top 5 yet. You know, I don't think Uriah Hall was top 5 when he fought him. I think Jack Hermansson has just fought higher level competition, winning or losing. He is someone that does not get put away so easily. He is a threat on the ground, which is where Strickland's going to have to really protect himself there. And this will be the second main event we see out of Sean Strickland. So I'm very curious to see how he does against a true top 5 opponent, in my opinion, in the division that possesses, essentially, stylistically, a little bit of a difficult matchup for him, potentially.
Yeah, I mean, you read my mind in a lot of what you said, Ian, because I'm looking at Sean Strickland, and again, I go back and look at, the betting lines on him in some of his most recent fights, and this guy is a guy that Vegas believes in, and I get it. His record is 24-3. As you mentioned, he gets a lot of attention for some of the things he says, but that does not take away from the fact that this guy is just prepared. He does enjoy his job. You can tell that when he's fighting. He's not really a guy who you're worried about having an off night, because he's just there mentally and physically every single time. But this guy was, a -210 favorite, I believe, against Uriah Hall. Now he's -220 against Jack Hermansson. I mean, if Jack Hermansson and Uriah Hall fought, what would that line be? I just think Jack Hermansson is getting a little bit snubbed here. How much do we think he's getting snubbed? I mean, what would you put this line at?
Well, I actually love what you just said about the whole thing with him and Uriah Hall, because I would probably have Jack Hermansson at -190 right now. If he was to fight Uriah Hall instead of Sean Strickland at the moment, he'd be almost a 2-1 favorite. You're talking about a guy, Jack Hermansson, that made it competitive against Marvin Vettori when he was a huge underdog there. Against Kelvin Gastelum, he's very dangerous everywhere. He's a good striker, not a great striker, but he's a very high-level IQ fighter. He doesn't put himself in bad positions. He doesn't go for broke. He's not risky, but this is someone that also doesn't force finishes, but still has, I believe, over a 70% finishing rate. Now, he is going against someone, Sean Strickland, who really just doesn't get finished. And Jack himself is not someone that gets finished in this fight. However, I do think that if you are going to bet this fight one side or the other, I do think the value is on Jack Hermansson. It's not to say that I believe Sean Strickland can't get this done, but I don't think a 2-1 favorite makes a whole lot of sense. For me in this fight, I'm going to go with over 4.5 rounds. I think this fight goes all the whole way based on the respect and the toughness of both competitors. You saw in the fight, Jack was really, I think he got dropped against Marvin Vettori in round 1 or early in round 2. And he kind of had a little bit of a comeback. He did it all on the feet, where he's not the most comfortable. And in this fight, Strickland's the better boxer. It could be something similar. Strickland's also a good wrestler, good takedown defense, and underrated grappling game. We know if Hermansson puts Strickland on his back, that's where the threat can be. But again, I think between these two guys, their fight IQ, and I know it's probably silly the way you see Sean Strickland on Twitter, but he's also he's a very smart fighter once he's in there. I like this fight going the distance. I think we're going to be in for a 5-round banger between these two.
Yeah, I agree. I love it when I disagree with you, Ian, because then we can go back and forth a little bit, and I can try to understand a little bit more of the way you're thinking. But I'm right there with you. I do think that this fight is likely to go the distance for all the reasons you said. I think both these guys are smart. I think they're very durable. Yeah, so, you always hear this line. It's kind of the cliche line in gambling. It's a dog or pass situation. And this is what it sounds like that the main event is. Dog or pass. You're not going to bet Sean Strickland. If you want to bet Hermansson, go ahead and do it. Are you doing it? How intrigued are you by the fact that you can get a guy like Jack Hermansson, who, again, has far more experience fighting at a higher level, at +180? Do you like that? Or do you think just from a stylistic point, as much as you kind of want to take a shot on the dog, that it's just not worth it in this situation?
You know what? It just, for me, if you want to play this safe and you want to bet, responsibly or with discipline, I like to call it, you kind of wait and see how you're doing. Because towards the end of the night, if you're playing with house money, if you're up and you want to take a shot at an underdog, in my opinion, you're getting tremendous value out of someone in him. Now, if you're really high on Sean Strickland by decision, I think you're getting plus odds there. But for me, look at the stats of Jack Hermansson. 4.86 strikes per minute, the 17 takedowns. That's a big deal here because he's going against somebody in Strickland who has very good takedown defense. But we know once it gets to the floor, if Hermansson is on top, he does not lay and pray. He will fish for submissions, and that will cause Strickland a little bit of problems. Not saying again he gets submitted, but having to fight off your back against a guy like Jack who's on top, who not only favors the position, is very good with submissions. I do agree with you there. I think he is worth a play if you're going to take a side. But if you want to go with Strickland, I'd say by decision. He's not a finisher himself, and Jack is very durable.
Okay, so it sounds like the play to go to, though, is the over. And it's funny, when you're taking the over 4.5 rounds, that clock can move real slow when you're watching that fight. But I do think the clock is going to tick in this 185-pound fight.
Thanks for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming, sports, and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.